Good afternoon on what is a warm, grey and cloudy day. It is Thursday the 18th of April and I'm in the reading nook with a nice hot cup of tea and parcel box. So let's find out what is in here. I can tell it's come from drive-through from the packaging, and what this is Cepheus Deluxe, science fiction role-playing game, published by Stellagama Publishing. This is Cepheus engine compatible, and Cepheus engine is essentially the if Dungeons and Dragons has the D20 system, Traveller, the venerable science fiction role-playing game originally published by Game Designers Workshop, has the Cepheus engine, essentially an open game license product. So, Cepheus Deluxe is a set of rules for playing classic science fiction games, including the rules of creating characters, resolving actions, fighting other creatures, and engaging in space battles, generating worlds, handling the risks of interstellar speculative trading, exploring new worlds, and many other activities. We're designed for fast, packed play rather than an accurate simulation of reality. Cepheus Deluxe Enhanced Edition encompasses a wide variety of rules and materials for building a science fiction universe and playing in it. The future awaits. So, essentially, if you are these days, you've got a few options in terms of playing Traveller. So one of them, of course, is to go and get the version from Mongoose. Far Future Enterprises also does its own version of Traveller. But if you want a bit more flexibility and really don't want your content to be tied so much to the Third Imperium, they're absolutely terrific setting for Traveller, then you are looking at something like Cepheus, or Cepheus Deluxe indeed. So, let's have a look inside. It is in full colour. So here we've got that's the credits, and then we've got the contents page, and introduction, explaining what a role-playing game is and what is Cepheus Deluxe, and essentially how you use it, and about the authors, and basically a big core introduction to the game and its ideas. And then the basic rules, essentially the diabolical conventions, which is you are rolling 2 6-sided dice, attempting to roll a set target, average being 8, and you'll have bonuses from your stats and your skills. And of course, advantage as well when that comes into it. So the rules themselves are really just covered in that page. And that page, and really essentially, that's it. That's all you really need to know. If you're a player, honestly, that's all you need to know to play. You want to get more complex with it, you're absolutely, have the capacity to do that if you've got a copy of this. So, then we get on to character generation, so first looking at skills. Because Traveller, and thus the Cepheus engine, was one of the first role-playing games to have skills, to be skill-focused more than essentially ability-focused. I mean, yes, the thief in Dungeons and Dragons had skills, but none of the other classes did. But Traveller entirely had skills because you all played humans. I mean, there are exceptions, but primarily it was playing humans. So you're up on character generation, characteristics. So and then you're doing things like choosing your home world, getting skills for that, choosing a career, and you've got skill packages there. And then you go through sort of like a step-by-step process, essentially a life path. So we each have a table like that for the careers. So you've got agent, army, belter, and these are pitched essentially sort of like a in Traveller. What you have is you've got the core rules, and then you've got a couple of supplements which are mercenary and high guard, which deal with essentially the military, either the space navy and the ground forces, and sort of like the marines that are in between. And those are, you get more there's also a book for the scouts as well, which give more options for more detailed character generation. This pitches it somewhere in between those basics, the basic and the advanced of High Guard. So different Marines, classic ones, colonist, elite. So the elite would be, you know, a diplomat, a junior executive, or even a noble. Essentially Marine, or basically a space Marine, and then you've got merchant, navy, pirate, all different careers. Rogue, scholar, scout, and those are the basic ones. Then you've got a life event table, essentially where you're going to be rolling on for potential events that happen during your career, and then at the end of the career, of course, you muster out and you get benefits. That includes money, and you get money and other benefits and shares in ships and so on. But you might go to prison, and there's even a table for that, and you age as well. So there you've got the age effect table, and you've got the prison table there. If something wrong, but then you can have the corrective surgery table. You can have cybernetics that each replace limb, and then you've got an example of character creation. I think the classic character where they always used to use for Traveller was Alexander Jameson, who became a merchant. And they've got a couple here. It's actually 2 or 3. So you've got multiple versions to look at to understand how each one is created. And at the end, each one you've got a fleet statted out. And it will look very familiar if you play Traveller at all. Now, in addition, this does add traits, so new features of competent and driven characters. So essentially, you know, basically, it's usually typically tied to a skill. So you might, if you've got computer skill, you might have the hacker skill trait, or you've got athletics too. The acrobat trait, gun combat. Everyone's going to want this. The crack shot or sniper and so on. In part because there is a certain degree of militarism built into the Traveller setting, because a lot of the player characters essentially will have served in the armed forces. They would have been in the army or in the navy or in the Marines. So you've also got vehicle and spacecraft traits as well. So you can be an ace pilot, that sort of thing. And you've got a number of other traits, and you can gain more traits through experience. And move on to equipment. Living expenses and that sort of thing, personal armour, cybernetic upgrades, that sort of thing. We've got a list of equipment there. List of personal and exploration equipment, because that's another aspect of science fiction, especially with Traveller. You know, you go out exploring, especially if you remember the Scout service. Pharmaceuticals play a role as well. There's, you know, they might be, you know, one for example that everybody's after is anagathics, longevity treatments to increase your life. You have a sequence here for creating robots. You have a robot companion, and you've got some sample robots as well. And vehicles. It gets a little bit kind of anime there in its artwork. It's a bit bright, but that feels a bit more Traveller-esque, if that's what you're after. Samples of groundcraft and watercraft and aircraft. Grab vehicles, so on. And then we get on to, surprisingly, weapons. You've been waiting quite a bit of time to get to the weapons section. And here we've got a list of all the weapons. So the weapons in general are quite classified by type. So you've got gyrojet rifle, gyrojet pistol, pulse rifles, assault rifles, auto pistols, rifles, shotguns, submachine guns, tanglers, that sort of thing. You've got heavy weapons like flamethrowers and plasma guns and fusion guns. So we've got sort of like common small arm accessories, common heavy weapons, grenades, explosives, gunnery weapons. So essentially these are vehicle weapons. You know, air-to-air missile, anti-tank missile, auto cannon, that kind of thing, laser cannon. Other hazards that your player characters might encounter, such as fire, falling, radiation, as you would expect. And then we get on to personal and vehicle combat. Essentially, this covers everything you really kind of going to need. Things like, aiming, automatic weapons, surprise, suppressive fire. It's all there. And then when you're applying damage, you'd be, knockdown, wounds, morale, the leadership skill, and morale. How to use that? So essentially, in a lot of cases, you actually will, in some cases, a traveller scenario will actually be, I say a traveller or a Cepheus scenario will be built around a small arms, small forces engagement. A lot of cases, you might go and train some forces on a planet against an attack from another nation, that sort of thing, and that might involve, commanding small forces. You might need the leadership skill, and then we actually have a personal combat example. Actually, more than one. I actually really do appreciate this. So you've got combat example, rumble in the docks, and then combat example, suppressive fire and grenades. So there we go. There's the first. We move on to the second in the corner there. That's a nice touch. It's nice and clear. It comes back to the whole thing, and I keep saying it. The rules are telling you how it's done. The examples should show you how it's done. Then we move to vehicle combat, including chases, and dogfights and foot chases, possible manoeuvres during a chase, collisions. Just all here, really. It's quite nice and comprehensive. Dealing with vehicle damage. So, and then we've actually got vehicle combat. Again, another example, a grab vehicle chase. So the other thing you can actually take from this is, as the game master, go, okay, I can see how that works. Can I put it into practice? Can I put that example into practice and get my players, pulses racing and have an exciting encounter? Yeah, great. Move on to psionics. Now, psionics is an odd thing in traveling. In the traveller setting, it's a known thing, but distrusted. And can get you into trouble if you have it. But depending upon the setting you're creating, and obviously Cepheus here is designed for creating your own, you can have it freely. And of course, we move on to Starship Operations, talking about interstellar travel, and we've got basically a table of times it takes for a spacecraft to accelerate at rates of gravity from around the orbit of a planet to the point in a star system where it can actually make a jump to hyperspace, to jump space, as it were. So we actually have the procedure for making that jump, details on crew, salaries, fuel, maintenance, revenue, how to do that, how to handle freight, and so on. So you could run a campaign where the player characters own, or possess a spaceship, a merchantman, and they are travelling up and down, trying to make money speculatively and having adventures on the side. Starship encounters, and then we move on to actually trading and smuggling. So we've got trade goods table, purchase price, selling goods. And you've got a table there of ideas of why is the deal gone bad. So that's a great thing for making merchant campaigns interesting. And they've got cargo tags table. The cargo is exceptionally valuable in the neighbouring starport because the regular shipment was lost, and now everyone is desperate for it. So you can actually, so basically, not necessarily bring your cargo to life because you don't want to do that, but you can make it interesting and give a reason to sort of go, oh, why it's more than just several big containers of cargo. And then we have ship design. So talking about what hull configuration, whether you want light armor, heavy armor, even a stealth armor, what drives to put in, jump technology, and how that works, because this is still going to be ultimately kind of play like that traveller game where You accelerate in terms of gravity rating, 1 to 6g. The jump capacity is 1 to 6, and indicates how many parsecs the vessel can jump in a single week. We've got weapons that can be fit into your turret. So you have missile racks, pulse lasers, sandcasters, particle beams, beam lasers, plasma beams, and so on. I've got larger weapons as well, like plasma cannons and gravitic lances and meson cannon. Weapons fit in bays like mass drivers, laser clusters, and Cherenkov cannon, which is basically going to be like a radiation cannon, I'm guessing. But I mean, they're not going to be fitted aboard a player character ship in general. Accommodation aboard your vessel. Carried vehicles, which can actually be could be small spacecraft rather than starcraft. And then we have a starship example, design example, a 300-ton light military transport. Space combat. So dealing with the pilot actions, sensor operator actions, gunner actions, captain actions. So all of the actions that the player characters are going to be conducting aboard the vessel when they're in combat. Each of the player characters is going to take a different role aboard the ship. So obviously your best pilot will be at the controls, your captain will be in the command chair, your sensors will be operating the sensors, the gunner will be in the turret. And of course the engineer will be down in amongst the drives, monitoring them, attempting to keep them running. And then starship damage, rules for that. And again, another example, a big example here, a little bit of old piracy cast, and then the full example, and over several rounds. So that's really going to bring that to life, and again, help the game master get a feel for how it works. And then we've got common spacecraft designs. And essentially, these can be summed up in fairly, just a couple, just basically a small paragraph. Sadly, there are no floor plans yet that I can see. Might be some elsewhere in the book. Move on to world generation, and that covers things like world size, atmosphere, hydrographics, world governments, law level, starport table, tech level, and so on. And then once you've done that, you can assign them a trade code, and that will feed back into your trading rules and your trading game, especially if you are running a merchant game. And again, example of world creation. Lots of nice examples in here. Really appreciating that. And then social encounters. This is basically how dealing with interactions with between the player characters and NPCs. We've got tables for different types. Nothing too exciting here. There's nothing more than just a name. Patron encounter table, so potential employers. But then we've got tables for the problem the NPC has had, motivation, and then characteristics of that NPC. And whether or not they're trustworthy. Why did they hire the player characters? And so on. What's the goal of the basic job? So you not only got the means to create an NPC, but you also got the means to create a job. Give it sort of like something that the player characters can undertake. So yeah, you can actually detail out the player characters in quite effectively. And we've got some sample NPCs. Sadly, no background on them. That's a little bit, but I mean these are just sort of like generic ones. And then we've got the xenofauna feature. An encounter example again, another example, lots of lovely examples of the creatures and essentially tables to help you create them. And then we've got referee advice, basically on building a Cepheus Deluxe setting, choosing careers, high-level play, how to do that, factions to groups, super science, whether to include that, career setting, and ideas table. Factions and groups, how to use those. So these are all prompts and ideas, and they're followed by adventure seeds. So several of these, which, you know, as a game master you can take and adjust up and down. Source of inspiration, so you've actually got an Appendix A, rather than an Appendix N. And then talking about the universal world profile for, you know, creating worlds. And then cheating death, Appendix C, cyborg conversion, and then Appendix E, legal, and then Appendix F, exactly what I wanted, starship schematics, and they're a little bit small, but they're there, and they, you know, they do look the job, yeah. So you've got the cruiser on the left, an explorer. It's a bit small. But there's quite a lot of information to pack on a single page. And I suppose if you've got the PDF, you can expand them. I mean, you know, you don't necessarily need to have all these floor plans, but they kind of add an element of verisimilitude, a feel for the setting. And the other thing I actually really kind of like, if you look at this, is sort of like there's sort of like a rocket ship kind of sensibility to them. So that's the system defense boat, but it's sort of got legs at the, sort of like at one end, so it lands upright. And similarly, this is a little fat kind of rocket, more than a spaceship, as it were. So that's a nice design aesthetic for these particular ships. You don't have to use them like that, but you can. And lastly, you've got the yacht before we have the index. So that is, and then you've got the sheets. They're a little bit small, could be a bit bigger, but essentially what you've got is a character generation worksheet, and before we have sort of like the actual character sheets at the end, and then a world sheet. So that is Cepheus Deluxe science fiction role-playing game. As a solid little science fiction role-playing game, really quite impressed with that. Artwork's a bit variable, spaceships look good, you've got everything you need to really run a game of your choice and add in elements. I think in some ways, obviously, the one problem with it is, at the end of it, the game master advice on creating worlds and settings is, you could write a whole book this big on it, to be fair. Anyway, published by Stellagama Publishing, this is Cepheus Deluxe, science fiction role-playing game. Well, I hope you enjoyed this unboxing of the Nook. If you did, then please do click on the like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings of the Nook, where you will see me out here with a package containing a book or game which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea, then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing of the Nook. I will be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.